Your AI is the calculator. You can use it to do complex math, and you can also use it to spell boobs, right? It's a fun little tool. It's great.
What is up, certified homies? Welcome to another episode of From A to B. You have Shiva, and I'm joined by Shawn, the Brawn, David.
Okay, I'll take it.
I was going for like Shawn Up at Dawn, and I'm like, everyone has a badass nickname, and if I did Up at Dawn, it's functionally right, but it's like Ed in the Copy God, L's Bells, and then Shawn Up at Dawn is like...
Hey, whatever. I'm a simple man. I'll take Up at Dawn. That's fine.
We're doing Shawn the Brawn.
Either one. Let's go.
Do you know what Brawn means?
I believe it's like that old guy from the old school paper towels. Brawny, right?
That's Brawny. That's not... Well, maybe. That might be adjacent. I had to look it up just to make sure I didn't like think it was one thing and something else. It means strong.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what Brawny is too. Like it's like a lumberjack.
The stronger paper... Well,
I'll take it.
No one gives a shit about paper towels. You are listening to this podcast for experimentation related things. Before we get started, if you're new to this podcast, please drop a like, subscribe. Only 5-star reviews, no 1-star reviews. If you leave a 1-star review, Shawn the Brawn will find you and do something paper towel related to your house.
Yeah, or something you may need paper towels for.
We'll keep on moving from there. Legally, I'll maybe never mind. We'll just keep moving. Okay, no. So Shawn, you are a person who controls all of the robots in the universe. True or false?
True.
Okay, just wanted to confirm. So, as a person who 1 year into Automate to Win, by the way, super congrats on Automate to Win. That's awesome.
Thank you.
You had a post today, kind of resonated with me. Basically, you're talking about things you've learned as a retrospective into your whole year in Automate to Win. Two things stood out to me. One, you said technology doesn't actually solve any problem. The usage of it may. And AI is a shiny new toy which solves very few problems but creates many. Which to me is a very interesting take as someone who is the leader of the bots, because most people I hear talking about AI are talking about AI everything. There's going to be no need for humans because you could just have bots write copy and bots write all this stuff. So that is a very interesting contrarian take. And I wanted to have you on to really discuss the role of AI in experimentation and optimization in CRO. I was surprised to hear you take that it creates many problems. So let's take a step back. Can you tell me what you mean when we say AI versus automation?
AI is anything that's going to do anything other than a rote physical manipulation of the data. If you need to move or shape the data from one space or way to another, absolutely. No one wants to do that. If you have to control C or control V at any point in your life, automate to win. That's what the win is in my book. Other people's idea of automation is the Henry Ford way of looking at that, and that's remove humans from even the equation. Like the Elon Musk version of automation, the Jeff Bezos version of automation, right? That's why they're billionaires and I'm not. Because they look at humans as commodities and they say, how do I get rid of these things that are really annoying and go to the bathroom? Okay, go to the bathroom in bottles. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for that? Robots.
So in this case, you are very pro-automation.
Oh, without a doubt.
In CRO and anti-AI.
Anti-AI in CRO, because AI in CRO is taking the opposite view of that. AI in CRO is literally taking what make the thing magic, the intelligence, and making it artificial. We don't want that. What we want is
intelligence. Just like real intelligence.
Real intelligence. We don't want artificial. Like no matter what, even how great that artificial is, like a real Coke is always going to be better than a Diet Coke.
Yeah, true.
Regardless of how great the Diet Coke is and for whatever reason you need to have it, real Coke, is better and you want that real Coke. You just have to have the diet. That's the way I look at this. The automation of it all is getting to a point where you say, oh man, I'm freed up. My brain is able to look at the thing I'm supposed to do, whatever that is, develop, design, and do that. So yeah, 100% automate everything. But if you're conflating those two things, then yeah. Dude, automation is the key to literally everything.
Where are people using automation and experimentation in general CRO incorrectly due to like the hype cycle? People are just excited for it. Where are people maybe overcorrecting for AI?
Yeah. The only answer to that is just look at the tools that have come and gone in the last 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean? I don't disparage any hustle and I celebrate everyone. So like I wish all of these tools that they were successful. But a lot of them aren't, and there's a reason, is because what they promise is the future of what we have now. Like what we have now is a very singular thing that's very good at doing a very small, and not to use the stupid trope that everyone uses, but it is true. It's only ever going to get better. It's like, it's the worst it'll ever be type stuff, right? But that is like, it's true. You look at this and you say, okay, well, what are we going to use automation for? And what are we going to use AI for? And immediately people are like, oh, personalization. And it's like, you have a difficult time even explaining what that is using today's technology. And then you're going to slap new technology onto it. And it's not going to make it better because you haven't even defined it.
Is it right to say that perhaps people assume AI is the Band-Aid for like shitty process and shitty everything? If you have experimentation sitting on top of shitty data, it doesn't matter how good the experimentation is. If the data sucks, the whole thing's kind of a wash.
But that's just like everything, right? So if you have a bunch of people doing different processes, you don't have a system. Like if you have a bunch of data that's being fed into a great experimentation program, you don't have an experimentation program. Like if you don't have optimized processes being fed into like a workflow automation, you just have faster shit. It doesn't really make any sense. And everyone is like, let's just tack on AI. But what does that even mean? It's just so weird. You know, when I first got into this, I was like, all right, I'm going to do automation, right? And I'm like, I'm just going to go into automation. It's going to be great. And I'm going to like do whatever that means. And then immediately, like 4 months into it, GPT drops. So everyone's like, don't worry about automation. This is going to be AI. Like all AI is now is basic workflow automation at a language level. Like everyone wants to talk about Devin. Oh my God. It's the thing that could solve 13% of or 14% of these different tests that are given to people from GitHub. Great. But
what is that? I don't know what that is.
Devin is this new AI. It's a new large language model, and they consider it to be the first software development AI. 2 years ago, you couldn't ask an LLM to create you content, and now you can better than anything that you could 6 months ago. The problem here is people want to use AI for all of this stuff that it's just not ready for. So you have people that want to build end-to-end AI CRO tools without understanding what CRO is. You want to have people build end-to-end AI personalization tools without defining what personalization is. End-to-end automation and process optimization tools without understanding that the humans that are running the system are the actual ones that matter.
So I've often compared AI to calculators, where you have to know what you're doing, and the calculator makes your life easier. But you still need to know what you're doing. You need to have the checks and sanity to know, I can validate and do this on my own. I could do math on my own if I want to do. Just calculator makes my life easier. Maybe you don't know every little minutia of detail, but you could generally at least learn or validate or check. I think that's an interesting point that many people are trying to just almost erase the human part of the oversight in experimentation, saying AI could just do it all, when the reality is AI actually has a good use case within experimentation. And I'd love to get into that in a little bit. But I think what you're saying is there's a way overcorrection. We're in a hype cycle where it's like, I've seen some of these things where it's like, well, I'm going to use AI and ChatGPT and all these things to basically write code for my experiment. If you don't know how to write code and you don't know what you're doing to paste it in and you can't guardrail it, you are probably setting maybe some things will work. Man, that's dangerous, right?
Yeah. It just depends on how much you trust the black box. So either AI is the calculator, right? And you can use it to do complex math, and you can also use it to spell boobs, right? It's a fun little tool. It's great. But it's the tool that you need to know what to do with the numbers. Like you have to know what to do with it. You can build a bridge or you can spell boobs, right? The other way around is now saying, okay, I don't need the calculator. I don't need to know math because I have the Terminator or I have Jarvis from Iron Man. And I'm not saying there's a wrong or a right way here. There's no real wrong or right way, but you can't have both. If you have a tool that says, I'm going to build code based upon natural language, if you have a trustworthy intermediary, that's fine. Cool. The problem is, who's building that code base? Where is that code base trained from? How are you making sure? Like, there's just too many variables that go into all of this that make it a level of magic. And there's another part of the thing that I posted that you didn't really hit on, but receipts don't matter if magic needs to be there. And that's not a negative. That's actually a positive. And if people read that as a negative, it's not right. What I mean is there's just a certain mixture of art and science. The magic of that is the CRO process. For too long, I was the asshole that looked at this as like a scientific process, and I would try to hold people to like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I was just completely wrong. The way I have to look at it, though, is it's a whirlwind of all these different things that are happening at once. They can't really be pinpointed. That's to say, that is CRO, or this is, or this is, or this is. So there's no real way to build out context engine for that. You know what I mean? You can't do that unless you have a human there. And if you have a human that has a context engine that can build out all the things that you would be able to do with a CRO, we are in a lot bigger trouble than having to worry about CRO. Because that means that you have like an actual context engine being run, and this thing can make decisions. And then now no one has a job.
I would say those people will still have a job, because I think right now we're having AI and CRO conversations to do way too much. And to your point, it's removing I don't want to say the behavior. With most jobs, including CROs, there's some politicking, there's some understanding of business decisions. Perhaps at some point, you might not have a human making the decision. It's some algorithm that takes all of the complexities ever. In a perfect world, all cars are all automated. They are all talking to everyone, and they all have the signals to say, hey, one car detected an accident, and then the 5 cars behind it can accommodate.
There would be no accidents.
Right. Well, or like a thing in the road, something like that. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But if just one car is not automated, the whole system it's not going to be, it might be better than not, but it's not going to be perfect. And it might ultimately cause more issues. In the same way, another example would be an airplane might use autopilot. The pilot in the airplane might use autopilot. There are a lot of things that go into it. I watched Sully. Anyone who's listening to this, Sully's a great movie. Mm-hmm. In that same thing, remember they were running the simulations, and they didn't take into account anything else. And they're like, well, he could have landed, he could have turned it around, but no, it's a human part of the supervision of the whole system. That saved so many lives. And if you just trusted the computers, it just would have been incorrect.
Every single person failed in that simulation. Every single person, because they did what they were trained to do. And this comes back to like what we were just talking about. There is no way right now to build the context engine to be able to understand. Like what you would have to do is you would have to get like Optimizely's database.
Yeah.
If you got that, okay.
Even then, I'd say there's so much context and nuance.
Yes, but I mean, as a starting point, like if you from Evergage to Optimize, like that, their entire history of every client's ever run, and you used Wayback Machine, so that way you can actually like codify of the actual things. Okay, now we're talking.
Well, let me challenge you on that. Ton posted on this morning about Ton Wessling, by the way. He posted something about, it was something around the future proofing of tests, that at what point do you rerun tests? At what point do those learnings no longer apply and you have to retest it? And I think that's an interesting conversation here, that perhaps even with all of the machine learning in the past, is that future proof? Can AI accurately predict the future? Like possibly, but it's not, I would say it's still not foolproof, or it's not totally future proof.
No. Well, this is the whole idea behind this, is the conflation of why GPT and Claude and Gemini are different and why one is better versus not, is not the technology behind them. Gemini is a different technology than Claude and GPT, and it's irrelevant to what they are. Just know they're different. The thing that separates them is the actual parameters in those models. Okay. So GPT is now in the trillions, and Claude is in the billions, and Gemini is now getting almost into the billions. But like, you have to like the sense of scale, you know, like 1 million seconds is a year, 1 billion seconds is 10 years. And then 1 trillion seconds is like, it goes back to like 1920, like whatever. Like it's ridiculous. Like if you start looking at the fact that there's trillions of yes, no answers based in GPT, that's why it's so amazing, because there's the context there. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this good? Is this bad? And this is a big if. I mean, like, let's grab all of Optimizely, all of Convert, all these different testing data, all these places, all these different places that purport to have outputs, right? Let's grab them all, put them into a training model. Then over the next 4 or 5 years, you have like a team of however many we're working on OpenAI, 3,000, 4,000 people that are trained in this. They go through and they say, is this a good known output? Yes or no. What is this? This is ecom, and they go and they train it from there, and only from there. You would have something that would replace low-level strategy, non-context built strategy, 100% of the time. You would be able at that point to be able to probably determine if best practices for CRO exist or not. Like you would be able to say, hey, run this across all of these different things and do trend patterns, and you could find out. But I mean, you're talking, I don't know, what, $1 billion? Like how much does it cost for OpenAI?
Well, not even just that. Like there are privacy issues
for
with
sure,
all of that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean,
Like,
let's say move past all that. Let's move past all the PII. Let's say you actually got the data.
So first, it's an impossible task. It's just straight an impossible task. And it's a stupidly costly task.
Yeah, beyond impossibility after you could solve the impossible things. So let's say you do that. You're still on the hook. Couple of 100 million, maybe even like $1 billion. The computing cost of it is just ridiculous beyond the human cost, because you're not going to use an algorithm to train it. You're going to use the human to train the algorithm, and then it can be self-training afterwards. But it's going to take years.
All right. So I know we're kind of veering into just AI in a metaphysical way around websites as a whole. But to pull it back a little bit, I think this is the crux of where I wanted to focus in, which is AI in CRO. And I think we're hitting this point, right? There are many ideal cases of, hey, AI would be great if we could have all of the data ever for every test and everything and combine all of this data. It's just never going to happen.
Nope.
So to use AI to like predict behavior, to me, is one of those things that I've seen as a big selling point, but to me, functionally, ugh.
For me, look, I knock no hustle, so I don't tell anyone that what they're saying is not possible. Maybe it's just not possible for me. But without the data,
but
without the training data, without letting me know how this actually works, it's like, all right, cool. Great. I'll take you at your word until I look at this. But then once you start asking the question, like the real questions, it all just falls apart. And when you're in a situation where you're only one step ahead of the person that's giving you money, all they need to do is just leapfrog you one step ahead of you, and which is possible to do in today's world. Like now you're stuck because you don't actually understand what it is you're doing. You're able to go and put the tracks on the train as it's going.
All right, so let me push you on this. As a person who's deep in the AI sphere, what are some red flags you would see? I don't want to say vendor specific, definitely don't want to call out anyone or anything particularly, but what would be some red flags for AI and CRO where someone looking at a tool or a mechanism to say, this sounds really good, but then here are the red flags to say, no, be careful, or even yellow flags like caution?
For me, it would be anything that is trying to replace what you would think of when you think of CRO. Now, here's the problem with that. It's such a wonky, wiggly, different definitional thing. So it's like, what is it? Everyone kind of understands what it is. Like it's strategic, thoughtful experiments being run on a website to manipulate the website to see user behavior. Call it whatever it is you want. Throw us whatever you want. That's what it is. So anything that is going to try to use an algorithm to predict the future behavior of a user, or the best way for you to be able to actually experiment, is going to be something to really look into. The reason is, even if this is successful, you as the person looking into this, the more you train it, the less and less relevant you become. So whoever's listening to this, right? If you are a CRO and you're like, I'm going to use a tool that's going to help me use AI to help me build experimentation ideas. I'm going to use AI to go back in time and look at previous ideas, and that's going to inform my future ideas. That is a trap, because it will work maybe.
So that's my challenge too. To me, it's compromising on quality for cost.
But it's not even compromising on cost, because you have to have a lot of data to reference. This is the first part.
Well, let me say differently. Cost of the human involved.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If I pay a person $70K plus benefits versus this tool that's theoretically $500 a month, and you say it does everything, that's where I say it's the perceived cost cheaper of cost.
Yeah.
But the quality is like, it's maybe, let's say, way cheaper, but the quality goes down.
Real talk, the way that you use AI in CRO is as just like you use in any other business, is as an assistant. It allows you now to do everything that you used to want to do to other humans, but you didn't because you're a decent human, if that makes sense. It allows you to just dump on it. You could just do whatever, like all of your time, everything that you need, you can just dump on this thing, and it's just like more. And then you would never do that even to someone like an assistant or something like that, because it reduces their function. And if you do that to your assistants, you're probably blowing through assistants because you're reducing their function. But this is just a math problem. You get angry because you need a thing, and you could just tell it you need a report when you don't really need the report. And then it'll give you back numbers that make you feel good about whatever it is. And you're not wasting another human's time. You're not giving them busy work to make you feel better. Like in a CRO, you have a billion things that you need to do. You need to answer emails. You need to prioritize all your tasks. You know what you all have to do. This is where AI comes in, because you can just stitch it, and you can create assistants that connect your calendars and this and that, and all the different little things that you do. They take that over, and they can help you. But to be like, hey, I have an AI that's going to learn from these different tests, and that's going to inform future tests, that means that you feel you are playing blackjack and you're not playing roulette. That's the trap. There's no memory here. Every spin of this wheel that you're running, your experiments, this is a slot machine.
So anything that tries to totally replace a human from that process, red flag. So if you're like, we can have AI be your strategist, red flag. If we say we have your AI be your data analyst, red flag. To me, that makes total sense. If it's replacing an entire human being's role, that is a red flag. However, there are tasks within there that I think can actually still be red flags, but there are tasks that are total green flags that you say you should be using AI. If there are some red flags in the task layer, it'd be like, analyze this test. That's a task that an analyst would have that I'd still say the human being, even if it helps and it does a quick summary, it gives you the stat sig numbers, it pulls all of the numbers all across all the data sources and then puts it into a report for you to then look at. That's a great use of AI.
But that's an automation. That's not even AI.
So fair enough. Fair enough. That's automation to win in the process of like that. Like that. That is automation in the process of aiding in the analyst job, but it's not taking it over. You know, it's interesting. I've been seeing AI in heat mapping tools where it will analyze the behavior. And I looked at it and I'm like, there were 10 insights, 2 of which were like, that saved me like 30 seconds of time. And then the other 8 were like, this is not right and it's weird and it's interpreting a lot of different things, like it was using an e-commerce lens towards a B2B company. So that's where that human is still so important in this. And to me, it should mean so much more coming from a person who's literally trying to automate as much as humanly possible. You're like, this is too far.
Yeah.
Extra trust you.
The process that I am is always human first. It's always remove the busy work, 10x the human. I don't want to create cyborgs. I want to create exoskeletons. That's the difference. I don't want to like incorporate with the machines because I think humans are dope. But I also understand that exoskeletons are awesome. And we could just jump in these things and mech out. Yeah, exactly. You know,
Terminator I'm pointing to a Terminator painting for your podcast listeners.
It's a dangerous situation when you start incorporating, right? Adapting to and using, sure. Like I'm much more of the flying donkey than I am of the 4th dimensional travel. As cool as
you're definitely an ass.
Yeah, of course, flying ass too, full of hot air. But the point, I would always choose, maybe it's an ego thing, but I think us in control of this thing and using this thing as a tool and telling of where to go is such a better and safer, maybe slower process. But the reason people are afraid of AI is because they can look in the future and they can see a time where no human is relevant at all in the intellectual ecosystem. That weird feeling that everyone is feeling and like these doom and gloom posts and everyone is like, oh my God, AI is going to take your job. Sure, but not in the way that you think.
I guess your ultimate stance here is that in its current state, AI and CRO is way overhyped.
I believe it always will be.
And it will always be. However, there will be redundancy. There will be AI taking over human jobs. And it will do a good job at some point. But it'll have to learn. And I'm interested in that. I'm curious to keep my eye on that because I agree that it'll probably get better. I just don't think it'll ever be the level of, and those who will replace humans, I don't think will do a great job. But I'm open to like seeing the tech. I never knew heat maps existed for users. And then you see it and you're like, well, this is badass. So just to pull it back and ask you, what is the biggest opportunity in the short term for CROs to think about automation in their workflows? What is the biggest opportunity? That's the best use case. That's not replacing a strategist and strategy work. What's the best use case?
There's actually 3 different use cases that I look at as CRO and that I've actually solved pretty well. The first one is a communication. It's not really specific to CRO, but it's very prevalent in CRO agencies. It's the ability to allow people to not get a task assigned in their comms layer or to assign tasks in the comms layer. So you can either have a clear task layer where you assign tasks for everyone, and if somebody gives you a task in the comms, it then moves it into the task layer. That's one way. Or you can have a clear task layer. When someone gives you a task in the comms, you tell them and send them to the task, right? So in CRO, for instance, it's a huge problem for the designer and the developer to get walias while they're in Slack.
Get what?
A walia. So it's while you're in there, while you're doing that, like, hey, you're already
While the patient's open.
yeah, like you are, you know what I mean? Like you're already in there. You might as well just go and do that. Like it's very easy, and it is easy. And that's what I mean. Like it's logistically easy. Everything about it is a very easy process because they are already in there. Like you already are doing that. Can you do this too? In a vacuum, that's fine. If it was just you and the developer and one client and okay. But invariably in an agency, it's shared resources and you're not the only one. Your Walia adds maybe 5 or 10 minutes onto something that they had access to 30 minutes for. And the waterfall of that, it's traffic. You have to plan it correctly. So specifically what you do is you add a mechanism that says, hey, this is the clear outline. If you need us to change it, we can, but this is the consequence to that. You do that in Slack through like Reaction Channeler. There's a lot of different automations. You know, I have a course you can take on it. That's the number one.
So number one is linking up tasks with comms to streamline that process.
Yeah. Number 2 is linking your data to your presentation. So whatever it is you're using to present, if you're using Google Slides or Google Sheets or whatever it is, at the end of the day, a Notion table, whatever, Airtable dashboard, doesn't matter. Whatever you're using for the client to see does not need to be updated by a human. Now, it may need to be created originally. That may be part of the magic. And I think a lot of the friction that I found, part of the magic of all of these like quote unquote deck creations is like that nuance between data and presentation, pulling out what I need and what I don't. And I get that. And a lot of people get value from that. They get like just a knowledge and it's like a rep of the prep. I get it. That's fine. That's cool. Instead of you doing the, for lack of a better term, busy work, what you have to have is the idea of what do I need to not do? The idea of what, like literally work on work, what makes you busy and doesn't actually do anything to move this presentation forward.
Right. So in that case, right, you have the analysis is the thing that you actually decide on. Pulling the results and having it in a presentation does nothing.
It just makes you busy.
It just makes you busy. So that's the differentiation. That is something I struggled with a lot is like, I know some tools, like testing tools, do a pretty okay-ish job of trying to help bridge the gap between here's the data and here's how to analyze and make decisions. That data analysis piece, and there's also the presentation, the formatting, any ways you could look to automate that streamlined process of pulling the data, having it be in a presentable slide, pulling it into sheets, having that kind of one-stop shop to integrate everything. I totally see the value in that.
And the good thing is, you know, like when we were both at Spiro, a lot of their analysts were doing copy paste work for a long time. And then we fixed that and it allowed them to analyze. Because if you have a job and that job is get these reports done, you're going to get the reports done regardless. If that causes you to have to go and copy a whole bunch of stuff and do a whole bunch of work and then present the report as you can, that's what you're going to do.
It allows you to just spend the high quality time in the analysis of the data rather than while your brain has 70% capacity, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
So the third one is the one that's kind of wonky, and it's something that I don't know necessarily if it'll work or not, but it's something that I think is very interesting to try. And that is to just grab screenshots of your website and feed it into Vision or Claude or Gemini and ask it what it knows. So this is like not for CRO because they're not going to understand what that means. It's too complicated, too vague. You need a precise question, okay? But what I found that works really, really well, and especially if you're on a blank page, just grab a screenshot of your entire website and then feed it in, and then just ask questions about what the thing sees and recognizes. Just be like, what is this? What do they sell? What is the meaning for this? What are the psychological triggers being used on this website? What are the aspects of this website that have a high strength of conversion versus non-conversion, right? Just ask it questions. From there, you're going to start getting questions that you'll ask yourself. You use it as the assistant that you can just bounce stuff off of without annoying another human. Because like if you and I were working on a website, right, and I had a trillion ideas and most of them are probably pretty stupid. Me bouncing those off you is such a waste of your time. It may help me, but me and you going back and forth and like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this button or I'm going to do this. You're just going to just be like, bro, like it doesn't help anything. What are you doing? If I have all these crazy ideas and I could feed them into a GPT with a picture, that will help me prioritize and it'll help me think in the future and it'll help me learn. And this is like the way that I would say all people should use this LLM stuff. Feed it into something that you generally have an idea about that you can confirm and then have it answer questions that you ask. So the first two are definitely executional and you should do those right now. Like link your tasks and your comms layer and figure out a way to get your presentations as quickly done as possible with little. The third one is a little bit more like, try this out. See if you can get this thing to just grab it and ask it a question, and you may be surprised. It may come back to you, and you may think your general perception of your website is one thing, and it's completely different.
But you're using LLMs to identify that versus humans.
Well, what I would do is I would use an LLM to be asked a specific question. I would never allow it to just generate something willy-nilly.
Well, I think that's a general problem with AI, right? It's like it's spray and pray AI. You know, I took your course for like got your prompts for ChatGPT, right? And what makes it God tier is such a specific focused question versus, you know, I've tried this before. It's stupid. Ask ChatGPT or ask some machine and be like, give me test ideas. And it sucks. But if you fed it a bunch of data, showed it a screenshot, then perhaps that might be better. I'd still say the human layer should still sit on top of that. Don't blindly trust it. Don't just blindly do it. Don't just blindly test it. It might unlock things that you might not have thought about. And that's where it's an augmentation to what you're doing rather than a replacement.
Yeah, it has to be. It's an exoskeleton. It just makes you 10 times stronger and faster, but it doesn't make you smarter.
Yeah.
That's the key. People think it's a cyborg. They think it's the Terminator where they plug it into their brain. It's like, no, it's a thing that you get in and it makes everything about you better. It makes you faster, stronger. You know, you can jump higher. You can do more things. But if you were dumb going in, dumb coming out, you know, like it's just, if you don't know how to ask the question to it, ain't going to work.
I think that's a good summary of the first part of this section of this episode, which is use AI as your partner and your accomplice and an aid. If you're using it to replace entire things, it might replace your data pull. That's a very small task, and it's helping you on the task layer. You still have to oversee it. You have to double check it every now and then, but it's not a replacement for roles. It's an augmentation. So you could spend more time thinking up rather than spending time in the weeds. And I think that's a good wrap for that first part of the section. All right, Shawn, what is it time for now?
It is time for shit you need to know.
Let's go. So this one comes courtesy of Chad Sanderson, super dope experimentation person turned into data person. Here's a snippet from his post. One of the worst feelings I've experienced as an analyst was being left out of the conversation during product development and then asked to analyze a feature's impact based on metrics from data that didn't exist. That is something I've just dealt with from other, like I've talked to data people and they're so annoyed with, hey, I have a test, run the test. Afterwards, it's like, oh, I want to track this one thing. And your data team, even you as a CRO, if you're self-reliant and pulling your own data, you're like, shit, I wish I tracked this. I think that's something that is perhaps relevant to the AI conversation, that a human has to foresee some of these metrics, or perhaps AI can help augment, or maybe you just have AI track literally everything possible. I think it's important for CROs, when you go into the testing process, to think of all possible scenarios and track everything that you can, and think strategically about what could happen for the next test. Because if you do these things, one, you won't ever have a doubt of like, I wish I had data for this one thing because there's some interesting behavior we didn't anticipate. Try and track as much as you can without impacting site speed. But on the flip side, think about 2 or 3 steps ahead, tests, because you could build those iterations in for faster testing. And that is what takes you into the strategic testing, which I think is relevant to the AI conversation because that's where the human comes in, right? The human is helping to think through the strategy that perhaps the AI isn't as in tune, at least at this current moment.
Yeah, no, I don't think it ever will be because it's such a bespoke process. If you want to know how many people clicked on an orange element and you didn't track that in the future, you're not going to be able to. Like maybe you can look at things around it or things that you've tracked. If you in the future are thinking you're going to want to know about orange elements, then you have to think about that now. And from now, you can say all of the tests, I'm going to continue to track these orange elements because this is a secondary or a tertiary element that I'm going to continue to track. So from very, very beginning of zero, and this is like at Spiro, they always do that goal tree mapping where it's just like, here's your North Star goal, and here's your secondary, tertiary, quaternary goals. What you can do at that point is every single individual experiment that you run, you can then tag these with these secondary or tertiary goals. You can track those as you go up. And sure, maybe one of them's working on AOV, one of them's working on LTV, one of them's working on add to cart, one of them's working, but they all are tracking orange elements. So you kind of have to think about what are the undertones of the system. And this is why you need a human. You can't use AI for this because the context of what the business needs is never going to be able to actually be like answered by anyone. It's only ever going to be observed from what you see in what you're testing. So the VP of marketing, the CTO, the CFO, the CEO, they're all going to give you different ideas. They're all going to tell you to move on different directions. You're going to have to keep that somewhere that says, okay, CEO, CTO, CFO all want these different dynamics, but the business needs LTV, AOV, all of these things. When you go and you plan all of these things, you have to kind of think about the iterative tests that come behind each individual one. If I'm running this test, what can I track on this test? Are these things cross-contaminated? Where are we at? And if you're not thinking about that, that means you're only thinking about one test at a time, and that's a trap.
Yep. As the famous Star Wars Shawn says, it's a trap.
Put this out. That's a trap.
Cool. All right. Well, that wraps for this episode. Shawn, where can the folks find you and all of your awesome, dope shit that you're doing?
AutomateToWin.com is where you can find me. Is where a lot of free courses, a lot of stuff you can check out. You can join the Discord server too. Come talk to me directly. LinkedIn, you already know.
Also, CRObestpractices.com, right?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I mean, you can't leave that out. CRObestpractices.com. Make sure you sign up for the mailing list. I send out every day, top 10 CRO best practices. Me and Shiva, we spend all weekend going through.
I love it. It's trained on AI, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It just goes through, and the more you use it, the more it'll train. So just...
This is real. This is real. Everyone should sign up and go to CRO Best
Definitely go to CRObestpractices.com.
Definitely do that thing. Cool. All right, Shawn, it's been an honor. Shawn the Brawn, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for joining on this podcast. Everyone listening, please do us a favor and subscribe, follow, do all the social things.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all. Shawn, thank you so much for joining this episode.
Happy to have been here and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Also, this was real Shawn. This wasn't an AI.
No. Yeah, this was every other video I've ever done. It was always AI. So you got lucky this time.
All right, take care, everybody.